Right, hello folks. It's been a while, but thought I'd just pop back and do a little book review. I've got the energy. So, past couple of months I've been a mix of super busy and exhausted and everything as always, and at the minute I'm extremely tired as always. But just kind of worn out in the minute, and I thought I need to kind of get back into the swing of things and start doing more videos. And I thought I'd come back with a little book review. Hmm. Excuse me. I've also developed a really annoying tickle in my throat as well, which is really starting to annoy me. Yeah. So over the past couple of months, I haven't done any research whatsoever. I haven't. I've just been too busy and too tired. And to moan about the weather, the weather's not been the best either. I've not been sleeping particularly well. Anyway, 2 weeks ago, I finished reading "We Shall Fight Them" by Ian Lofting. So this was a book recommended by one of my YouTube subscribers. I'm sorry, I can't remember who it was. I'd be able to find your name. But I thank you for that. Absolutely cracking read this. And this was one I've been wanting to kind of do a little review on for a while because off the bat, it is a good book. It's a really, really good book. Um, and I do recommend it. I've also already recommended this to a couple of people who are getting kind of started in research, but also wanting a readily accessible source of information because a lot of the information that's in this book can't generally be found unless you start doing some, archive research. So a bit about the book itself. So it considers Operation Sea Lion, so the well-known German invasion of the south coast of the UK. But what it does is also split that up into covering both sides. So it doesn't just cover the German efforts, which is usually the case. It covers the British preparations as well and the Commonwealth forces, and it does a really good job of that. Absolutely fantastic job. So kind of off the bat, it doesn't do what I'm doing, like looking at the whole of the UK. It does look at just generally the south coast and the area where Operation Sea Lion would have taken place, which I think is fair enough. It's a decent little study area, and it makes sense. You don't, to cover Sea Lion, you don't need to consider the whole of the UK. But that being said, it does cover all kind of arms of the military in the UK. So it covers the Air Force, the Navy, the infantry, and all that. Um, and yeah, having read this, I've learned a shed load about sea lion because I have to be honest, I'm not actually particularly interested in the German side of things. I'm not interested in sea lion particularly. I want to just look solely at the British preparation, the British side of things, and the Commonwealth side of things. But this has given me a massive amount of information about sea lions, some stuff which I was just completely oblivious to, such as how long the operation was going to take. I was under the impression that the Germans would land and then immediately try and push inland, and capture London, when in reality they weren't even going to leave the beachhead or the kind of perimeter around the beachhead for 2 months, which is not something I considered. So it does an absolutely fantastic job of that, of showing the German side of things as well as the British side. The book itself, so this is unscripted as always, so I'll try and remember some of the stuff I wanted to say. The book itself is essentially split into two parts. So you have like your main body of narrative work, so your narrative history, your kind of story that you follow, and then the second half of the book is pretty much a series of appendices, including vast amount of information, statistics. There's an entire order of battle for the home forces, which is just absolutely amazing. And then you've got additional information such as like RAF Training Command. Absolutely amazing thing. This book is worth it just for the appendices. Absolutely cracking stuff. And there's also some maps as well. And yeah, like I say, essentially split into two sections. It's very similar to. It reminded me of Stopping Hitler by Captain G.C. Wynne. Sorry, I had to just go and look at that on my bookshelf. It reminds me very much of that, which is a similar thing of having this narrative history followed by like the raw data, the appendices at the back. So like I say, off the bat, this book, I think I paid about 16 quid for it. It is worth it just for the appendices. You've also got this additional bonus of a really nicely well-written kind of historical narrative that takes you through various bits and pieces of the history and the operation itself, and does a good job of analysing the potential battle as well. I think, yeah, it's a good read. It is nice and easy to read as well. Um, I think so what I want to try and do with these book reviews is kind of provide a level at which these books kind of in terms of level of experience that these books cater for. And in this case, I'd say that this is kind of like your top level of intermediate, you need to know the difference between a battalion, a division, a company, an army or a regiment, and all this stuff. You need to have a military kind of like knowledge of military organisation to fully comprehend this book and fully appreciate it. So I wouldn't say this. I wouldn't recommend this to beginners, and I would say this is more kind of tailored towards your kind of like semi-professional historian, person with a background in military history. But that being said, once you get once you've done a bit of like got a bit of experience, it is a cracking source of information and provides a really good basis on which to assess the preparations and the counter to Operation Sea Lion. And again, the appendices side of things, the raw data in your appendices are a good source of information for anyone looking at the subject. So yeah, I wouldn't say this is necessarily as accessible as Andy Chatterton's book on the auxiliary units, which I can't remember the name of. So I'm completely out of it. I should know the name of Andy's book. No. Anyway, Andy's book on the auxiliaries, it's not as accessible as that. And yeah, one of the books I'm going to read in the future is Andy's recent book, Fortress Britain 1940, which, from my contact with Andy and having proofread it, that is set at a more accessible level, but I'll cover that at a later date. While this is a bit more hefty. I'm going to cover some of the negatives because there are a couple, but not very many. It's I don't want to kind of crap on the book. It's a really good book. It's a solid piece of work, and I can see the amount of effort that's gone into this. And the negatives are extremely minor. Off the bat, there are a couple of typos in it. You will spot the odd spelling mistake, which doesn't take away from the overall work. It's just one of these things that I picked up on as I was reading through, and there's like one or two appendices references which are missing, which again, very minor. You can find those in the back anyway. The biggest gripe I have with it, and this is purely from a professional point of view, is the fact that the main body text isn't referenced. So if this had full archive references, either footnotes or something similar, pointing you to where the information has come from, this book would be absolutely top notch. This would be, I would say that this is probably one of the best pieces of historical work on the subject if it was fully referenced. But that does not detract from the overall book itself. It just means that myself as an archaeologist / historian looking at this period, I can't simply look at the text and go, well, he's got this information from here, I'm going to check that document out, check the primary source to make sure that it corroborates what he's saying, but also see what other information is in that document as well. So I can't corroborate the information that is in some sections of this. But as I've got a background in this field, I can see where some of the information's come from, such as like your top tier war diaries, and it does kind of like corroborate with my my experience looking at the documents. I've got a good idea of where he's got some of the information from, and he does mention in the back some of the broader documents that he's considered, but the things like the quarterly returns of the British Army, he gives the broad reference for that, so WO73. So you can potentially, tie things back. It'll just take you a lot of work to identify those individual sources. It would be absolutely fantastic for you to fully reference this, but that in itself is, that's a massive task. And as I've said, it does not detract from the overall work. This is an absolutely cracking piece of work. I can see how much effort's gone into this. Absolutely fantastic, like I say. But that'd be the icing on the cake for this book. If it was fully referenced, it would be the go-to book on the subject, which it still pretty much is anyway. So not to be too negative about that at all. It's a cracking bit of work, absolutely fantastic, and it's always nice when I read a book on a subject that I know a fair bit about, and then I actually learn something. I find that just so rewarding that I can read something and go, oh, I didn't actually know that. That's really cool. And the way the book brings everything together, so not just the the land forces, but also the air and the navy is extremely well done. Really, really well done. Vast amount of statistics in this. So many little snippets of information and other bits. Yeah, really good analysis. Absolutely fantastic book. There was the only other negative I've got is one of the chapters, I think looking at the things on the ground, could have been split up a bit more just because it, obviously the ground-based aspect was extremely detailed, but if that section was kind of split up into, to make it a bit more focused, so you could go, oh, well, this chapter's about the artillery, or this chapter's about coordination between the RAF and the ground forces, for example, and this chapter's on the Home Forces General Headquarters and all this stuff. That make it a lot easier to navigate. But again, very minor criticism there. It doesn't detract from the overall work. Oh, there were a couple of places as well. So it does a really nice analysis of where the Germans were to land and the opposing forces they would come up against, and it's got some really nice photos and things like that. But it doesn't link through to the maps that are at the back, as far as I was aware. So you've got some really nice maps that show these distributions of the units on both sides, and not being particularly familiar with the area where Sealand was going to take place. It's the south coast, it's not somewhere I've particularly spent a lot of time. So when it mentions a place name, I can't go, oh well, this is here. There's a couple of so I did a tour of the area with Peter Hibbs a couple of years back, so I've got a good idea of what's where. But I tend to relate things geographically by location rather than name, so I don't tend to go, oh well, Eastbourne's here, right? I know where that is. I can point to that on a map. I don't navigate like that. But these maps are extremely useful. If they were linked to the text, and like if I think it'd be easier if they were actually in the text, so you could actually look, oh right, okay, well this map relates to here. That would make things easier, because there are some photographs in the text as well. But again, very minor criticism there. It doesn't detract from the wider work, and it is really useful seeing these maps and going, okay, so the 99th Mountain Regiment would have landed here. There's a typo there, with the Panzer Battalion A. They would have come up against A Company, the 1st Royal Irish Fusiliers. Absolutely, it makes things a lot easier. But if that was a bit close to the actual text it relates to, that'd be useful. But again, that is a massive aside. It's the negatives are very minor. In terms of your appendices, there's some really useful information about the distribution of troops. So you've got pretty much an entire order of battle for, I think it's for July or September 1940, the time when Sealand was meant to originally take place, which is amazing. This appendix is just absolutely fantastic for being able to quickly work out who was there and focus your research a lot easier. So you can quickly go, oh well, the 11th Manchesters were in this area that I'm looking at. I can get their war diary now, and they're the units I want to look at. So in terms of that, it's just absolutely fantastic. You've got information on the Royal Army Ordnance Corps. There's a section in the main text about the logistics side of things and petrol and all this stuff, which is something I've only just started to kind of dabble in, but it does such a good job of summarising that. I've just found it now. You've got like the maximum ranges for all the field artillery that was deployed by the Royal Artillery, which I've only just stumbled across now. You've got effective ranges now. Absolutely and it's an absolute one-stop shop of information. So just to kind of summarise, because I've been rambling for nearly 15 minutes now, I would say straight off the bat, if you haven't got a copy of this book already, get a copy. It's, if you're serious about learning about the historical period and looking at the counter to Sealine itself, and if you live in particular in the areas where the operation was to take place, then it's an absolutely fantastic piece of work. It's a really good. It really gets you thinking about the wider aspects of the issues of invasion as well. Makes some really good points about the political aspects, what would have happened after, and all this type of stuff, and also the part that weather would have played. So the operation taking place in September, very close to winter. Coming up to winter would have really caused some issues. Again, the appendices, which cover pretty much every single unit, as far as I'm aware, in the UK, is just absolutely fantastic. Like I said, I've already recommended this to several people, and I'll keep on recommending it as a kind of like a one-stop shop of information with a decent analysis, a decent, well-written historical narrative. It's absolutely fantastic. But like I say, I wouldn't necessarily use this to jump into the subject with, because it is quite high level in terms of unit organisation and all that stuff. You need something I need to do as a result of reading this is to go through and look at the German order of battle and work out German organisation, because it is very different to, appears to be very different to how the British Army was organised, especially in terms of units in a division and all this stuff. That once I get above kind of battalion level, I start to struggle with what's what, because you're dealing with like close to 2,000 soldiers in a unit, and the organisation that can be quite complex. Um, but yeah, no, absolutely fantastic book. And thank you to the person that recommended me to get this. Well chuffed with it. Yeah, it's a good book, and I wish this is this is a bit of it's a jokey criticism. I wish this had been available when I started doing my like getting involved in this in 2002 2005, because this would have saved me a lot of time and money as a resource. But yeah, absolutely fantastic stuff. I can't recommend this enough. The price is good as well. Brand new. It's fantastic. So yeah, that's been just a little review of We Shall Fight Them by Ian Lofting. Yeah, cracking book, and I recommend getting a copy of that. I'm just going to quickly finish off with let's just finish off with a little update. So yeah, I still want to work on the Invasion Threat series. Given how knackered I am and struggling to focus, I think what I'm going to start doing is looking at something alongside this to try and keep my interest peaked, and try and keep me going. So I want to have a look at the kind of the British Army's, the organisation of the British Army and things like that. I've got a couple of quick vids I need to get around to recording as well. I just haven't got around to the research of that. I'm also potentially going to start writing my book. I've still got to finish off the introductory chapter and get the book approved by a publisher, but if that comes around, then my time's going to be even more limited. I've got some big projects I'm working on alongside this and all that, so the channel's just going to keep on plodding along as and when I can get it done. But yeah, as always, thank you everyone for following, and I hope this video has been alright. And like I say, just one last time, get a copy of this. It's a good book. Yeah. Right, I'll see you later. Thank you so much. Bye.